for me, that encapsulates 20 years of observation working with global organizations who really do need to be able to tell the story, have some value to their story. So there needs to be an obstacle or some challenge or a nemesis or a aspiration or something in the middle to overcome. So talent can say, I can see my contribution will matter. So it's not just having an aspirational purpose, like start with why. There needs to be some value in, okay, why me? What's it going to take to get there? What's my contribution mean? So on and so forth. So that's it in a nutshell, a 5-stage story structure designed for culture and talent.
It's only natural that we want to always put our best foot forward, look smart, polished, attractive. But according to today's guest, employers are missing out on top talent because they are not being truthful about what's really happening in the organization. And it's that unvarnished truth, warts and all, that is really what makes your career opportunity interesting. Hello and welcome to the Business of Story. I'm Park Howell. Bryan Adams joins us today. He's the CEO of Happy Dance, and he's an employer brand strategist behind some of the most iconic campaigns for brands like Nike and Apple. His TEDx talk has surpassed 1.4 million views, and he's the author of Give and Get Employer Branding. Plus, he's got a new book coming out in September called Sell the Truth. Today, you will learn why the truth your audience needs to hear outperforms the truth you're comfortable telling, how Bryan's truth framework makes employers stand out in the talent market, and why conflict and disruption in your recruiting storytelling is actually your secret weapon. My old mate, Bryan Adams. Great to have you back on the Business of Story.
It's great to see you again, Park. It's just like two old friends catching up. Love it.
Well, gosh, we met back in like 2016, I believe. You had just written a book and you came on my show early then. And then we did the co-show where we did one recording and it ended up on both of our shows. And then you had me out to Liverpool, which was one of the greatest trips I ever had to hang out with you and your team. And we did some story training there and we did some story training in London. And then had you back on the show a couple of years ago with, I believe, your second book you have out. And then you come over and become a resident of San Diego for several years, running your advertising world and your internal communications world. And now you're coming to me from Spain, although you're living back in the UK because apparently ICE ran you out of our beautiful country here. Is that right? Do I have that right? That chronology right?
More or less. We'll just skip over the ice bit. I don't know about that, but yeah, no, I left to go back to the UK because of the superior weather. No, well, definitely wasn't that either.
I know. We were trying to get together out at Hotel Del when you were in San
That's
Diego.
right.
I was speaking in Social Media Marketing World a couple of years ago, and I apologize for that because I spoke and I didn't expect to be held afterwards for about another hour answering questions. And there you were drinking all by yourself on the deck of the Hotel Del. So I owe you a drink for that stand-up there.
You do, and I'll hold you to it. However, I've got to say, having a drink on the sun deck of the Dell as the sun's going down is not the worst place to be, so it was fine.
And by yourself too, so you don't have to deal with any annoying questions and conversations from me, so I get that as well. Yeah.
You said that, not me. Dear, no, it's always a pleasure to see you, Park. It really is.
Oh, thank you, and you too. So, and you're the Uber entrepreneur. You always have something churning in the storytelling world, and so I'm very eager to hear and to share with our listeners what you're up to now.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I was running an employer brand agency called Ph.Creative, and we built a bit of technology to serve our customers. And it was so good that every time we gave it to a customer, they literally did a happy dance because they couldn't believe it did what it's supposed to do and it worked and it was great and all the rest of it. So we actually split that that little division out of the consultancy, called it Happy Dance, and it was such a roaring success that I got rid of the consultancy just to focus on Happy Dance. So we build enterprise level career websites now for global brands like Uber and HubSpot and SAP and large organizations like that, so they can showcase their employer brand and attract the best talent to their company. So the beautiful things, Park, is I'm still in the world of employer brand. I'm still up to my neck in what I love most in the world, which is storytelling. But now we're selling a SaaS product, which I'm very proud of, and the team do a brilliant job delivering it.
All right. So, for those of us that aren't completely versed on employee branding, what is that exactly? And give us an example of one if you've got it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, put simply, it's the other side of the coin of branding. A lot of people will be familiar with a brand slogan like "Just Do It" at Nike, for example. Actually, my last global employer brand that I delivered as a consultant was the employer brand of Nike. Um, so we went in there and essentially came up with the brand slogan aimed at a talent audience to attract people to come and work for Nike, and aim to build a reputation for that company as an employer so they can attract the world's best talent from competitors such as Adidas or Uber or Tesla or organizations that have great talent that they want to entice away.
And what was their employee brand? You've got, of course, everybody knows a ubiquitous "Just Do It."
Yeah.
How did you play off of that for their employee
So
brand?
it's very different, actually. The employer brand slogan was "What moves you moves the world," because it was all built around the one insight that people joined Nike for the prestige of the swoosh. No
Mhm.
surprise there, but they stayed because of the deep connection to the purpose of the organization once experienced on the inside. And so the whole motivation, and Nike is phenomenal. It's an amazing company. The whole company is ran like a sports team. And that is true. I saw it with my own eyes. It's amazing. And so every position counts. And what we found across the globe, whether you're in retail or corporate, whether you're in Mexico or APAC or America, everybody found their own motivation to drive their career forward by the sense of what they did made a real difference. And they draw from what moved them emotionally about the purpose of the organization. And then they saw Nike be able to literally move the world forward by the sheer power of their global strength and the meaning in their message behind such an iconic brand. So um, yeah, that was probably, well, it was the last thing I did in the world of consultancy, and it was my most loved brand from a childhood sort of day of. I remember watching Back to the Future and seeing Marty McFly's Bruins enter the frame because if the first scene
Uh-huh.
you just see these two Nikes walk it, and I thought, wow, they're cool, you know. So that was my first introduction to loving that brand, and to end a 20-year consulting career by touching that brand was amazing.
Mhm. So somebody who's thinking about employee branding in their company, what do they have to think about? I mean, what's some of the, just to kind of level set for our
Mhm.
listeners here, of what are the things that they consider that develops a really powerful brand?
So that's a great question. So typically, what you're trying to do with an employer brand or branding in general is create some sort of differentiation, a point of difference. You're looking to make yourself more relevant than your competitors. In employer brand case, it's talent competitors. And then you want to be the most memorable. So they're the sort of three yardsticks at the end, if you like. But typically, and if you're trying to just sort of distill it down to the basic essence of what you're trying to get to, and this is the inspiration for my next book, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, is what's the unique truth inside this organization that people need to know? The thing that people feel on the inside, how do we put our finger on that and articulate what it is to the outside talent community, such that we can set their expectations and also motivate and inspire them to lean in and want to know more. And if you can do that, you can build an authentic communication strategy built on the truth, which usually differentiates companies, unfortunately, right out the gate. Um, but then you can also start to look at, okay, what's the common characteristics, traits, capabilities across a global organization or a small team in a startup, same applies, such that you can see, what are the pillars of your brand strategy and how does that come across to coherently galvanize and crystallize the culture that you want to build and manage to lead your organization. And if you can if you can build a very simple strategic structure around the truths inside your organization, everything hangs off that, Park. You should be able to see people use your cultural employer brand framework to make decisions in Singapore and have those decisions similar in California because everybody's pointed towards the same set of values, capabilities, and strategic themes.
I would imagine finding that truth is very difficult for people because they're navel gazing. It's the whole thing of you can't read the label from the inside of the jar. So they need someone like you to come in to help, kind of like a psychologist, if you will, help them reveal those truths, find out what are true truths versus aspirational truths, which are very, very different. And then I'm curious, how do you go about that? And is that what your book is about?
Yeah, so um, you're right. The biggest challenge most organizations have is actually finding that truth. And you just mentioned it there. The aspirational truth, it's a bit of an oxymoron if you think about it, because if it's aspirational, usually it's not true. Um, but 20 years in consulting, working with some of the world's largest organizations, the one thing that hasn't changed is find the truth and learn to sell it. And it's not spin, it's not packaging, but you've got to be able to sell it, which means leveraging it positively. Typically, the leadership will have a view which they believe to be true. Your employees will have a view that they believe to be true, and so will your customers. And then you've got this reality versus aspiration and understanding, okay, what's the truth around the destination? So typically, what it comes down to, Park, is what is the true story of where you are now, where you want to go, and what it's going to take to get there. And if you answer those questions in that order of sequence, then you've got all of the true ingredients to put something together, which not only will resonate with people internally, not only will attract people externally to possibly join for the right reasons, because then you've got to decide, do I have what it takes to contribute to that journey? But also it connects the aspiration to reality and sets out very clearly the direction of travel of an organization. So the most important bit of what I've just said there is it's of value to a leader trying to build a culture of capability so people are prepared to put in what it takes to move the organization forward.
Mhm.
And coherently and simply finding that truth that takes you from where you are now to where you want to go. That's where the magic lies.
Can you give us an example of that, with a company you've done that with?
Yeah, sure. So one example that springs to mind is I worked with an organization called VF Corporation many years ago. And that's an organization that's responsible for brands like the North Face and Vans and Supreme and Timberland and so on and so forth. And I spent some time in their park and they had some challenges. There was a lot to celebrate, and they're a very successful, profitable organization as well. Um, but one thing that was holding them back worldwide, and I saw it with my own eyes, is people were too nice. I mean, I thought it was a conspiracy. They were hiding all of the regular people from me at one point because everyone was just so lovely. It was amazing. But it was interesting because when I scratched below the surface and looked into some of the challenges the organization was having and the aspirations of where they wanted to go, being nice was holding them back because what it was stopping people doing was giving candid feedback, honest, constructive criticism, and it was getting in the way of people collaborating and helping people get better, see their difficulties or their weaknesses, and so on and so forth. So, and it was about the time that Kim Scott wrote Radical Candor, if you remember that. I think it was around
Mm-hmm.
2016,
Yep.
18, somewhere around that. I'm terrible with timelines. So we introduced a pillar to their employer brand, which was around this idea of the difference between being nice and being kind. And what we did was, culturally on a global scale, we gave people permission to lean in with the truth when they see an opportunity to add value, to better something, even if it meant somebody's feelings might be hurt. And what we taught the organization was it was okay to give it, and it was okay to think differently about receiving it. And when that crystallized and changed from just being a strategy in a PDF, and it was explained with storytelling across the organization, it was transformational in terms of the effect it had on behavior, not just in leadership, but across the organization. And it enabled them to get through a blockage that when we first went in, they didn't quite realize they had. So for me, that's probably one of my favorite. I don't know whether it's one of the most effective and powerful examples, but one of my favorite examples, because when we saw the penny drop and people were like, "Oh my God, this is fantastic. The difference between being nice and being kind. And sometimes being nice isn't kind because you stop at you're not giving the gift of honesty." Um, that was fantastic. And obviously that company is, multi-billion dollar organization. They control more than 1% of the world's cotton. So I like to think it had a big difference on on a lot of people's lives, and the jobs and employment and the culture of that organization.
Well, and how do they measure something like that? Because you and I wear very similar hats as consultants going in.
Mm,
We help them make that transformation. They can see it happening, but boy, it comes down to where the rubber meets the road. And how do you actually measure it? A lot of times it plays, I know with me, sometimes in my head, like, wow, that was amazing. Everybody was so into it. I'm getting really great emails, but how do you really measure that kind of thing. Like with our ABT, for instance, we can measure it when we're doing an AB test on a LinkedIn
mhm.
campaign that someone's
Yeah.
running, and they do it like they normally do in March, and then April they see a 400% increase because they've used the ABT. How do you measure the impact you guys have?
So that's a great question, and don't forget, I'm not.
Nothing but great questions here, Brian. Just so you know, all right? So
So, um, don't forget, I'm not in the world of consultancy anymore. So,
right.
so it's much easier for me to apply stories to a careers website, and measure the conversion of qualified candidates, watching the storytelling of an employer brand through the words and the stories of employees, articulating how they felt inside an organization, and how the employer brand has come to life from an employee experience perspective. And then what that tends to do is it doesn't just positively affect the conversion of people visiting a career site to a successful applicant. What we then start to measure through to successful hire is how many of the applicants were actually qualified to not just do the role, but when they're assessed, how likely are they to thrive within our specific culture? Then you get some really interesting measurement there. But um, going back to the example of VF, that's a bit more of a long strategic timeline, to be honest, because um, those employer brand strategy will impact a global organization fairly slowly at first when it's embedded, and then it will go deeper into performance review. It'll go deeper into the productivity of an organization, and slowly you'll start to see that a simple tweak in an employer brand strategy can actually move the share price, because if everybody feels more comfortable, they're able to be more productive. You've got license to give feedback to positively impact somebody's capability in each role, each team, each division, each geography. Then that's how you move the needle there. So it's harder and it takes longer to measure impact. But actually, the key is embedding it into things that matter, that are already there in an organization, like performance review and targets, and team stories of, hearing exactly what difference it's made to people's
Mhm.
careers.
Yep. So we will talk about your book, but I know it's not gonna actually be published till September, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's not out till September, but
So let's talk right now about Happy Dance. I'd like to learn more about this SaaS product you
mhm.
have and how people use it. If I'm thinking of one person in particular, Jen Russo. If you're listening to this driving into Century, I'm thinking of you right now because I know of how much hiring you all do out there, and I know the challenges of it sometimes. So, if you were speaking to a large American infrastructure
Mhm.
company, how would they use Happy Dance to go and attract and retain the best talent?
Another great question. Done it again. So,
Nothing but.
so, so Happy Dance is a platform that allows you to build essentially a highly configurable website which is built around your brand. So it's not template based or anything like this. You really do get to show off the culture and employee experience and your employer brand in all its glory as it's supposed to be. And then we add personalization. So we identify somebody coming to your career website and tailor the stories and the environment and the job listings and all of the things that they might be looking for specific to them, so it's much more relevant. And we give our customers the ability to have real genuine employee stories at scale, to build out content to answer the questions on the candidate's mind, and make it really seamless and easy for the right candidates to apply for roles within that organization. So to give you an idea, typical conversions of a careers website competitor might be anything as industry standard as 3 to 5%. We see conversions of up to 12% because of the level of detail, and our origin story is employer brand consultancy. So we know what it takes to really showcase an employer brand at scale, and we do this at enterprise level. Park. So our typical employee count for our customers is around 38,000 to give you an idea. Now, we have a mid-market product and it's available to companies of any size, but typically we deal with global brands.
All right. So you obviously have AI built
Mhm.
into it. Someone comes in, I am searching for a job and I go, "Hey, I think I want to work for this particular company." And oh, they got a couple of these things, but that AI sees me coming in and can do kind of a profile of me and say, "Oh, Park is like this and he does this and he asks really good questions on his podcast. So we're going to show him these particular openings."
Yeah,
I mean, is it that tailored?
it really is that tailored, and if you give us your CV up front, we can filter down the fire hose of all the vacant roles and say, look, we think you should consider looking at just these 6 roles because you're ideally matched. And then one thing that we've added, Park, which I'm really proud of, and if people are interested to look at National Grid's career website, you'll see we've introduced a conversational navigation, which means just like you talk to ChatGPT or Claude, you're more conversational in your tone rather than when you search for Google and use 3 or 4 words. The conversational navigation means that we get real insight into what candidates actually care about and what they're really looking for. So we can, rather than have a page structure, we can have a free flowing dynamic experience and bring in stories and articles and answers to your question to really hone in on what the candidate cares about. So straight away they can see whether this is an organization for them or somewhere where they don't think that they're a good match. So the candidates that then go forward from that type of experience are already much higher qualified, and the recruiters of that organization using that conversation navigation have qualified that to say that most of the candidates that go through the application process have what it takes to thrive, which is fantastic.
And then you are capturing all that intel from what people are saying, so it resides in the AI brain
Mm.
of that conversational website, and they can then go and say, "Well, we had a rush on this particular kind of job, and here's what people were saying what they're looking for. Now, next quarter, we are gonna launch these 3 jobs. Maybe we need to pull from that," or does your tool, Happy Dance, even suggest how to story against those new jobs, depending on what it learned from the people that showed up the first time?
Oh, you know it. You know it. Because the conversational experience is captured, we have a real-time insight into what the content schedule, the content strategy for that organization should be, not only to put out there on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, so on and so forth, but also if there's any content and stories that are missing or light on the website, we get real-time insight, and then we can go looking for them and fill the gaps. So the continual learning mechanism is really powerful, and if you've got the resources to go and get those employee stories quickly, it really does accelerate the relevance and engagement of the site. So absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So you and I are kind of on parallel paths here. You've taken everything you've learned out of the branding world, running a traditional agency and then employee
Mhm.
branding, and have now created a SaaS product taking your brilliant IP, applying AI to it, and really creating a whole new generation of
Mhm.
product and capability for companies that are again looking to recruit and retain the best talent. We of course did that with our StoryCycle
Yeah.
Genie, took our StoryCycle system IP and have done something similar, and we of course ran Happy Dance through it. So I would love to hear two things here. Number one, what did you find of the findings? Did you feel like they're accurate? And let's talk through a
Mm.
couple of them, and you can explain to our listeners how Happy Dance delivers on some of those story elements.
Yeah.
You good with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's do it. I've got it in.
So, of course, it went in. We fed it the Happy Dance website, and in just about a minute or two, it gave us the initial brand assessment
Mhm.
that's based off of. And then it jumps into the complete Happy Dance brand story. And it named three primary audiences. Were these accurate? You've got enterprise HR directors and VP talent of acquisition, number one. That would be your number one audience, according to the Genie.
Absolutely.
Number two, employer brand and recruitment marketing professionals. And then the third one, mid-market HR and talent teams.
It's absolutely spot on with spooky accuracy, Park. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Then would if you would do me a favor, because I love it from coming from another brand person that knows this world well. Let's just look at your number one audience and let's talk through the four emotional triggers that you all respond to as a
Mhm.
brand. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it.
And then that way you can help to kind of, obviously sell what you're doing there too. So do you happen to have it in
I
front of
do.
you, or should I just read it to
I've
you?
got it.
All right, why don't you read, audience number 1, enterprise HR directors and VP talent acquisition. The first category of triggers is
Yeah.
challenges. Read that for us and then tell us how you guys respond to
Yeah,
it.
so the challenge is filling thousands of roles annually while protecting culture, controlling cost per hire, and demonstrating measurable talent ROI for the C-suite. That couldn't be more spot on. And I think we're in a world now where most large organizations are putting a higher priority on not just filling the roles, but demonstrating that they filled the roles with the best possible people, benchmarking against talent competitors, and this is definitely something that they're having pressure applied from the C-suite. So yeah.
So that's and you how do you help them overcome that challenge?
Well, obviously now we've got a track record of doing that at scale with lots of other global brands, but because of our background, which is a unique origin story of deep employer brand expertise. We haven't built the product to just be feature by feature competitive to our competitors. We've built what we know our customers want and need to completely fulfill the requirements to showcase employer brand in all its glory at an effective, practical, feasible level. And of course, it integrates with all of the other enterprise level HR tech stack it needs to as well. But yeah, so the flexibility of the product to showcase the employer brand really does address that challenge, as well as um, ensuring that the candidate experience is optimum. So taking the friction away from applications to make sure that we're not losing great candidates because they get frustrated with clunky technology.
Gotcha. Okay. So again, staying on audience number one, enterprise HR directors and VP talent acquisition. The next category of emotional triggers are
Mm.
fears. Read that for us, and how do you guys respond?
Yeah, so losing the talent war to competitors who tell better stories, being held accountable for a career site that quietly repels the best candidates. Now, that's really interesting, this one, because repelling volumes of candidates that aren't right for your organization is actually something that organizations really want. But their biggest fear is having the best talent in the world come to their career site, willing to work for them or at least go through the application process, and just leaving out of an inane frustration or some sort of friction that isn't by design. That's literally the worst thing that could possibly happen in that scenario. And if they come to a site, if it doesn't load very well, or there isn't inspiring, relevant stories of how a career could grow, or how they make a difference to the world, or whatever the motivations of the talent are, then again, that's playing right into the biggest fears of the talent leaders there.
And so Happy Dance, you're able to walk that fine line, by repelling those prospects you don't wanna waste their time on or your time on, while also not repelling those that you do wanna keep around.
Exactly. Well, you mentioned it earlier. My last book, Give and Get Employer Branding, was about a two-way value exchange. So being brave enough to repel the many in order to compel the few that are really well matched to your organization. So we do balance that really well. And my next book, it will reflect the storytelling of how to enrich that and make those compelling stories really relevant and really resonate with that talent.
You know how I repel potential customers? I put them through my rigid and frigid test, Brian. And if someone shows up and they do, and they say, "Park, we really want to, use your stuff, but we got a lot of people that aren't really, into story, and we're gonna have a hard time, winning people over, and we have a system that already works pretty well." Well, that's rigid. And then I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not for you. I'm not here to sell you on story. You already have got a be bought in, and you've got something to fix." And then the frigid test, and those are the people that call up and you can tell it's all about them. They're a little bit annoying, they're a little bit obnoxious,
Yeah.
and they're people you don't wanna so you wanna repel them. They repel me, I wanna repel them. It's my frigid, rigid test.
I love that. So I use the three F's, which is fame, fortune, and fun. So the first one is you got to be fun to work with. So nobody frigid or rigid. And then the next one, so we only need two out of three. You can either make us famous or make us a fortune, and we can live with either one of those as long as you're fun. So two out of three of the three F's.
I love that. Okay, category number 3, emotional triggers of
Yeah,
frustrations.
so self-serve platforms that require their team to become web developers and content strategists on top of everything else. Career sites that generate traffic but lose candidates in the experience. So yeah, there's one competitor which I won't name. Every ounce of my body wants to name them, but I won't. Um, we get a lot of business from them because they cause so much frustration with their customers. It's difficult to log into, it's rigid, it doesn't allow you to do what you want to do. It's very template based. It has a tendency to break if you have to request changes, or it takes weeks and weeks and weeks for somebody to get back to you. So frustration levels are off the chart. And Happy Dance is very stable. It works every time. It's very flexible. You can change every aspect of the site in real time, very quickly and easily. And we're constantly adding new features to add new benefits to our customers. And we create those new features by listening to our customers and giving them what they ask for, not what we think they want. So frustration is a huge one for us, and that's spot on.
All right. And then the final one is actually positive. Here's what they wish for. These are their aspirations.
Yeah, this is my favorite, this one. So, a careers site they're proud to share, one that performs as a genuine talent attraction engine and positions them as a strategic contributor to competitive advantage. And the reason this is my favorite is very something very close to my heart, that I believe employer brand and people in business are the only competitive advantage left. With AI and technology now being a commodity, people are the only competitive advantage left. So, um, a success for us is when the website goes live. Like if you look at Uber jobs, for example, that's probably one of the biggest global brands we've ever done. And we put that website live. It was shared internally, and everybody was just passionately proud to see the brand showcased in such a fantastic way. And it was an emotional response that really meant something to us. Of course, it performs incredibly well, and it's doing the job to showcase their employer brand, and it loads rapidly and all of that good stuff. But yeah, it's it's something that is a proud part of their branded world, and that's something that Happy Dance promises out of the gate. If you look at Canva, if you look at Salesforce, Johnson and Johnson, Verizon, General Motors, they're all global brands, and I think every single one of my customers there would tell you they're proud to send people to their career site to apply for a job.
That is awesome. Not a surprise, Brian, because I've seen your work over the years and how it's evolved, and it's always been excellent in every one of these different areas. Uh, with what the genie found about Happy Dance, and it obviously validated a lot of what you were
Hmm.
doing well,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Um, where did it reveal gaps? Did it reveal gaps? Did it share some things like you're like, hadn't thought about that?
Well, some things to think about. So there's a lot in the report. There's so much value that can be had here. But the unique value proposition, transform your career site into a candidate experience that makes top talent choose you. Um, I had to read that a couple of times because I'm like, damn it, Park, that's really, really simple. I really like that. And I was super, super excited to read it, and also a little bit wounded because I've been in this branding game 20 years, and I thought, oh, actually, I might have to steal that. So that was really interesting. The brand personality, the organization traits, concierge, practitioner, and purposeful. Um, that 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 made me reflect. Um, Purposeful reflects the organization's conviction that everyone deserves a job they love, is a moral stake in the ground, not a tagline. I was glad to see that because that's something that's really important to me. And the emotional promise, joy, that spoke to me because Happy Dance, um, that name was actually born out of the emotional response of our first couple of customers. They couldn't articulate how they felt, they just did a little dance. So that spoke to me. I'm trying to think of gaps because um, it was just so accurate, actually. And I'm looking through the report now, and I can't see anywhere where it says you might want to think about this or might want to change that. I don't know. Maybe you can guide me as to where I should be looking.
Yeah. Well, the way you would do this, Brian, is you, as a customer of the StoryCycle Genie, collaborating with it, would run your own brand story.
Hmm.
And it would first give you that assessment, and that takes about 2 minutes. And it says, here's how you're showing up. And you want to get that to be about 90% accurate. So if some things are missing on your website that the Genie didn't pick up because you didn't have them there, or the wording was a little bit confusing, the Genie's going to say, hey, don't get this. What are you trying to say here? And it's going to give you a rating. It's going to give you a score from 0 to 5 of how well you're doing in these different areas. You go in and say, oh, no, this isn't right. I need to tweak this, tweak that. You just tell it. It doesn't ask you a bunch of questions. It just shares with you. It's a little bit like mirror, mirror on the wall. How is my brand showing up for all? And then you look at it and you say, okay, this is 90% accurate, go. You push a button, it goes through the story cyclone process that is guided by my 10-step story cycle system, and it's got the and but therefore narrative framework at the heart of it. And in about 5 minutes, it will create that complete narrative strategy that I sent to you.
Hmm.
Now, because I don't know Happy Dance's brand story intimately, I made no changes. I just said, okay, I'm just that. Yeah, I read through the assessment. I go, this
That
feels
makes
like it's
sense.
pretty accurate. Go, and then it goes to you. So you would get the same thing, and then you would go in and you would say, okay, I like these first two audiences. Actually, this is not my third audience. My third audience is this. You would just tell it to update that, which also means then on your website and other marketing materials, you haven't done a good job of communicating who that third audience
Hmm.
is. So now you are realizing that, looking at it in the mirror, and then you go, oh no, I need to change it to this. Gets into the position statement. And I find this with a lot of people. It'll say, and I always tell it to the only brand that does this. And people will often come back and say, yes, that's pretty accurate, but really other people are doing this. So I can't say I'm the only. So you can't say, okay, great, but we're close. Now tell me what how you are the only brand in this particular category.
Yeah.
What is it you do that's a little bit different? And they are like, well, I don't know. And then that's just a conversation between
Yeah.
yourself and your colleagues and a consultant like me to figure out the truth, like you do with employee
I was
branding.
just going to
You
say
say, well,
exactly the same thing. Yeah.
here's our truth.
That's
This is what we're about. So the genie collaborating with you and it makes you think through those things. And then you can try it out. Say, really, we are about this. And here's how we back it up. I want you to bring that into your brain and I want you to rewrite the brand positioning with this in mind. Then it'll do that. And then you get closer, you go, like, okay, that's really good. Let's go with that. And so you iterate throughout the whole thing. And every time you iterate with it, Bryan, it gets smarter about your brand. So you go in and you like, damn, I like that unique value proposition. And you shouldn't feel ashamed because you didn't come up with it. The genie has come up with so many amazing insights for me and writing that I'm like, oh, I love it. But you know what? It won't do it without
yeah.
you. You bring your expertise, your market intuition, your customer insights, your branding capability. And that's why I say, it's not artificial intelligence, it's artful
Love that.
intelligence because you are bringing your truth to it.
Nice. Brilliant. Isn't it funny how our worlds are so overlapped? We've really sort of obviously we've story in common for so many years, but we've both sort of ended up with going full circle, being able to put your finger on the truth is your point of difference, and that's yeah, that's remarkable, and it doesn't surprise me. But yeah, you've really got something here, Park. As a brand consultant, 20 years, I can tell you that it's eerily accurate, and I can see how it could be really powerful for a lot of people.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk real quick about your framework, the truth framework, because that was something new in your materials that I haven't seen you use in the past, and I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so um, you know me, Park. You're exactly the same. You've studied so many different story experts over the years and so many different frameworks. Uh, I wanted to contribute something specifically to my little niche world, employer branding, and actually now business leadership, because I think employer brand really does need to sit with business leaders. A good CEO should be focused on being a talent magnet and a storyteller, and I think that's primarily what a CEO is. But the truth story framework is essentially, and um, this is sort of standing on the shoulders of giants, not reinventing or inventing the wheel or inventing fire here, Park. What I noticed was there wasn't one framework that really was a tailored suit, a really good fit for exactly what was needed in the employer brand space. And it's a five-step framework. TRUTH. Not surprisingly, it spells truth. And you will recognize that it's pretty much ABT, bracketed with a startling trigger that really is designed to get attention in this world where everyone's fighting for attention. And then harvest is the H, which really does, with absolute clarity, make clear what the end result was, the change, what changed for the better or for the worse, whatever, but usually for the better in the purposes of what we use it for. So what we've got in the middle, so we've got the trigger, the sort of inciting incident designed to get attention. Then we've got a reveal, which is where the truth is brought to the attention of the audience. And right next to the truth, which is reveal, is unlock, which is, okay, we know the truth. What's the insight behind the truth? And usually that's where the penny drops or where it becomes relevant to an audience. And the value of that goes up. And then after unlock, we have tension. Okay, so what's at stake here if we don't move forward? What's the consequence of inaction or not doing something or not climbing something or rising to the challenge or whatever? And that's when we get to harvest, which is essentially making it perfectly clear the positive impact of the journey. And for me, that encapsulates 20 years of observation working with global organizations who really do need to be able to tell the story, have some value to their story. So there needs to be an obstacle or some challenge or a nemesis or a aspiration or something in the middle to overcome. So talent can say, I can see my contribution will matter. So it's not just having an aspirational purpose, like start with why. There needs to be some value in, okay, why me? What's it going to take to get there? What's my contribution mean? So on and so forth. So that's it in a nutshell, a 5-stage story structure designed for culture and talent.
Can you give us an example of that in action?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can apply it to any host of situations, but I've got I could give you an example on a macro scale from a brand. I can give you a non-talent example, but actually, and in the book, I give away a library of questions. So depending on what type of story you want, um, and I'll give you a talent progression story because I find it's not enough for the organization to talk about what it's like to work there. What you want to do is go and find an employee who has that lived experience and get them to tell the story. So in this case, I'll give you 5 questions designed to elicit the story rather than tell the story yourself. So if we apply it to career progression, trigger might be within the first 2 days of the role, I thought I'd made a terrible mistake and nearly quit. Reveal might be this job sounded easier than it is, and actually this is really tough, and I haven't quite got the skills to thrive. The insight is unlock. I spoke to my manager. They settled my nerves, and they said, nobody's got all of the skills to thrive, but this is an environment where we will support you, we will coach you, and we'll lead you through what's required to be a great contributor in this team. The tension is, so now I had a uphill battle to climb. I had to learn new skills on the job. I had to make fast friends and embrace all of the things around me, the resources and the culture, to accelerate my own career. So the power is in my hands, but I've got to make it happen. And then harvest might be 6 months on into the role. I don't recognize myself who walked through the door in the first couple of days. I've embraced all of the support of people around me and the resources available. I've learned new skills, and now I'm being considered for promotion. And I've got to say, I love it here. I love the people, and I love the opportunity this organization has given me. Now, that's a simple walkthrough of a career progression story based on the same 5 points, but asking very specific career progression questions at each stage to get the story you're looking for.
Mhm. And where would you use that story then? On website?
Yeah, so imagine having that story on a vacant role in the same team as that employee. And if the biggest objection for taking that role is people not sure whether they have what it takes to thrive in that role, what a great story to listen to overcome that objection and get great talent to apply for
Mm,
the job.
gotcha. Or somebody you've got great talent in there that you really believe in, and they are second guessing themselves or have imposter syndrome. And then you say, well, let me tell you Cindy's story, or Cindy, share your story. And then you've got that libraried in there and say, you're not alone. We've all been through this. So,
Exactly. So in the
yeah,
story library, it's literally questions to ask at each point. So when people answer those 5 questions, you can stitch it together and you know it's a coherent, proper story with all of the things that you need,
yeah.
to edit together.
Awesome. So, final little bit here, your book coming out September. Tell us about it. When can people pre-order? Do you have a PDF you can send me? I can review it, or what's going on? Tell us about the book.
Absolutely. So it's called Sell the Truth. It'll be available in all good bookstores and Amazon. If people want to register for a notification and early access, they can go to www.happydance.love, LOVE, / sell the truth. And just put your details into a little form, get instant access to some early resources, and that will guarantee notification when the book drops in September.
Awesome. And of course, we'll have that link in our show notes. So, Bryan, it's been a pleasure, man. It's always good to see you. I wish I was sitting by your side in Spain. We could be drinking, watching the sun go down there, whatever, but we got to catch up in person here soon, one of these
We
days.
have to do that, but yeah, that would have been dos cerveza, por favor. But for now, it's still uno until we can meet again in person.
I will never forget when we were pulling into the venue in London, a very busy, busy venue. Actually, we were backing out, and the guy driving the big van hits the bike rider. Remember that? And then he went into immediate save my ass mode, and he was looking at you like, back me up, back me up. And he was looking at me, and I said, hey, man, I'm just a foreigner. I'm going to be out of here in 2 days. So I don't know if you ever backed him up or whatever came with that
Ah,
poor guy, but boy, he just
yeah.
really, he pulled out, and that bicyclist ran right into the side of the van and hit it
Oh my
hard too, as I
goodness.
recall.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't hear anything either, but I was trying to be as vague as possible. I was like, hey, don't bring me into this.
Just another great story. Well, Bryan, thanks so much, man. Can't wait to see you again soon, and good luck with Happy Dance.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on again, Park. Great to see you.
It's always so much fun to talk with Bryan Adams, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation as well. Feel free to share it with anyone you know who would benefit from his wisdom. Now, if you have not yet put your brand through the StoryCycle Genie brand story grader, do that right now at StoryCycleGenie.ai. It's going to give you a grade from A+ to F- and a 14-point storytelling assessment. That'll validate what you're doing well, reveal gaps that you can quickly fix, and even inspire you with new ways to think about your brand story. That's at StoryCycleGenie.ai. Now join me next Monday when Dr. Laura Sokola is going to be here. She's the author of the new book, Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice. And until then, remember that the most potent story you will ever tell is the story you tell yourself, so make that one epic. Thanks so much for listening.